Here we go. Here we go. We are back live in the studio with a conservative perspective and with my co-host, Missi.
Good morning. Good
Uh,
morning.
now I always have to slow down because I've been saying like Miss T, like with the T. That's why I'm like, it's Missi.
Just
Like,
I don't care what you call me. Just don't call me late for supper.
I like that. I like that. Well, we have the honor and the privilege and the pleasure to having a great guest in the studio with us on this morning. Miss, I'm gonna bounce it over to you and let you introduce our guest.
Well, I do know our guest very well today. We actually spent 8 years on the board of the local Lee County GOP together. We worked on many projects together and campaigns and different things. Jonathan Martin. We're going to find out more about him, about his background and all that, and what he's doing today. But I got to tell you one thing about Jonathan. He's always the tallest guy in the room. He's easy to find when you walk into a political event. And he's got a beautiful family, and his roots are right here in Lee County. And he is actually our state senator. So, Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Missi. Thanks, Wayne.
It's good to have you. As we always start the show, we always want to get to know more about the individual, and then we sort of kind of go from getting more to know about the individual to find out, what you're doing today. So, what I want to do is tell us a little bit about who you are, where you was raised up at, and how did you get where you're at today, and then we'll take it from there.
Man, that's a short question for a long answer. Where where was I raised? I was raised in South Florida. My parents moved down in the mid '80s with me and my brother from Minnesota. I was born in Iowa, but by the time I was 4, we were in West Palm. My parents were Christian school teachers over in West Palm, and that's where I spent the first 10 years of my life in Florida. By the time I was 14, my parents split up. My dad stayed in West Palm. My mom moved to Fort Myers, and being old enough to recognize the difference between the East Coast and the West Coast of Florida,
Yeah.
it's like, man, the West Coast is nice. So even though I had friends here in Fort Myers in high school that were like, I'm going to move out of they call it Fort Misery back then. And, I'm going to move to a big city. I'm like, sure you are. And then after you wait in traffic for 4 hours a day,
Have fun with
and you
that.
realize you had a pretty good life back here in Fort Myers, now we're back. And sure enough, by the time everyone was 30, they were back.
Yeah.
They were back in Southwest Florida. I was fortunate enough to come back after going to college and law school. Worked for the state attorney's office here in Southwest Florida for 7 years. Met my wife, Amy, and she's still a prosecutor, but you can't raise kids with prosecutor salaries. They don't pay you overtime. Not like law enforcement, that even though you're working all night and going to trial all week and working on the weekends, you don't get overtime. You just get that salary. So, I had to go into private practice, and so right before we got married, right before I went to private practice, I'd been involved in the REC here in Lee County since 2007. And so about 2014, there was a change in leadership, and one of the chairmen previously stepped down, and there was an interim chairman, and I stepped in to run for that position and won in 2014. And I became the chair of the Lee County REC and remained there until 2022. So 8 years, and it was an interesting 8 years in Florida politics and national politics. That was smack dab in the middle of the Obama administration. It was a couple years after the Tea Party really got rolling, and so being involved in the REC in 2007, you saw the Tea Party kind of come up to speed in 2009, right after Barack Obama was elected, and really start making an influence and a difference. In 2010, I think one of the biggest U.S. elections in 2010 was our Speaker of the Florida House, Marco Rubio, running against the governor of Florida, Charlie Crist, and basically.
And that's where I got started in politics.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, with I lived in Miami, and I was going to Bible study at the Rubio's house every Tuesday night, and I didn't even know what he did. I didn't know who he was. I wasn't involved in politics. I had that social media company, but way back then, 2010.
Wow.
Back when nobody knew who the Speaker of the House was, even though they were from Miami. Now it seems like everyone knows the Speaker of the House.
I did not know
Yeah.
because I was not politically involved. But yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt. But yeah, that's how I got started, and that's why I ended up being the chair for Marco Rubio when he ran for president. So he had announced his run for Senate that morning, and we had Bible study at night. And I'm like, what? So the next morning I Googled him and found out what he was the Speaker of the House, and what is it, the 100, what was his initiative there where he did 100 things for Florida. 100 ideas or whatever. I'll let that
I
go. But
believe you.
yeah, there was So I just knew Jeanette because it was a women's Bible study. He dealt with the kids when he got home.
That's fun.
Well, I got 2 notes. I'm gonna come back to you with REC. All right.
I interrupted him.
No. You good. But 2010, when you talk about social media, like what was going on in 2010? I remember MySpace, and then maybe that was the origin of Facebook at that time. But it's like now every other month you got another social media platform that comes out. I can't even keep up.
No.
You know, I mean, like literally when we went from Instagram, people started calling it IG. Then we went to TikTok. Then we went from Twitter to X. I'm like, what's next, man? Like, because there's so many of them out there now.
Don't forget True Social and MeWe. Remember during COVID, everything was getting shut down.
Yeah. Jonathan, tell me a little bit about. So, what did you go to? You went to high school in Southwest Florida.
Yeah, Fort Myers High School.
Fort Myers. Ooh, Fort Myers. The Greenies, right?
Yeah.
Ooh, wait. I ain't gonna talk about the Greenies. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do a program over at Cape Coral High School, and we've had to play them in basketball, a few times this year. And so, let me tell you, when they show up, they show up. Yeah, they bring the whole city with them. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. Go ahead, Miss.
Small town mentality, here. It's a big town now,
Mhm.
but there's still that small town mentality here
Yep.
where where I was raised in Kentucky, everybody came out to the Friday night football game or basketball game or whatever it was because it was the only thing there was to do in town. Here, there's a lot to do, but still you have that school spirit here.
Yeah, back when I was in high school, so I graduated in 2000. So from 96 to 2000, Fort Myers was the only school in the county that had the IB program. Now there's 3 schools. But what was cool about going to Fort Myers High back then is I had friends from all over the county, whether it was from Bonita Springs or Pine Island or Sanibel or Alva, Lehigh Acres, where I lived Lehigh Acres my last year of high school. You got to know people from all over the county.
Yeah.
And they were on that one IB program. So coming back, a lot of my friends that were in IB, they're now doctors or lawyers or professionals here in town. And some very high up in the school district or Lee County government, working for the cities. So it was really cool to just kind of like have that one melting pot, that one school that kind of pulled in a lot of talent, a lot of diversity
Nice.
from throughout the county. So when I come back to Fort Myers, even though I went to Fort Myers High School, which is zoned kind of central Fort Myers, I had friends from all the communities here in Lee County. So I think that kind of helped.
You do know everybody. Like the longer I knew you, the more I was at one guy's house. We were doing a little fundraiser. He was doing a little fundraiser at his house, and I'm getting a text from Jonathan. Why are you at my high school friend's house? How do you know him?
Yeah,
Remember that?
you thought you were like branching out and like finding new keefe behind the politics.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Tony's a great guy. Tony's a great
I'm
guy.
like,
Yeah.
Tony, you know Jonathan Martin? He goes, yeah, we went to high school together. Yeah, he's my buddy.
And he was holding signs for me in my first campaign in 2012. Yeah.
Well, she thought she was branching out. It reminds me, I was in Nashville at a mall, and I was going to buy this bracelet. So I go in this jewelry store, and I'm talking to this guy, and I'm like, yeah, give me your best price. And so he gives me his best price, and I walk out, I go to this next jewelry store. I'm like, hey, give me your best price. They give me the best price, and I walk out, and I go to the third one, and they said, hey, you already talked to my sister and my brother. Like, so.
Was that a joke or was that real?
No, it's real. Like, literally. So they were like, we're going to sell it to you for this price, sir. I'm like, so y'all own all the jewelry stores in the mall? Yep, we own all the jewelry stores.
That's what would happen if I'm at like the carnival or the fair and I'm trying to like price out cinnamon rolls. Probably like running to Adam Botana's wholesale on me.
You would.
Talk to me a little bit about your profession. So you left high school. What did you go to college at?
I went to Stetson University up in DeLand.
Okay.
Majored in political science, majored in religion, minored in business, and I was student government president while I was there.
Wow, man.
And I was on the crew team.
Wow.
Nice.
Man, you can go from theology to poli-science. Man, you well-rounded. Woo, we got a powerhouse.
I will tell you, when as chair of the party for the time that he was chair of the party, I don't think we ever had a better conservative Christian voice for the party here. I don't think so. I mean, if it was before me, maybe, but definitely.
Thank you. That means a lot.
Yeah. I mean, he could belt it out. Like he asked a question or somebody had a problem or whatever it was. And he's just seriously grounded in conservatism and Christianity. And it's just, it was very powerful. So yeah, I miss those days.
Yeah, I miss. Thank you. I miss those days too. Those were fun, but it was time. It was time to move on.
Wait. You missed the REC days? I'm gonna leave it.
Yeah, all that. I mean,
Yeah, it was good times for most of it.
We had some good people that were in the fight.
Yeah,
We did a lot back then. I mean, if you think about what the school board looked like
Yeah.
back when I started in 2014 to what it looked like by the time I left in 2022, I think there was one Democrat left on the school board,
And two,
and we were getting beat up during COVID.
Yeah.
Think about the policy. Think about how big of a struggle that was just in 2020
right.
to get things flipped around, and we got a good slate. And of course, not everybody agrees with everybody
No.
100% of the time. I don't agree with 100% of my votes by the end of session. I sit down and I'm like, man, maybe I should have voted yes on that one or no on that one.
You're always questioning
You
yourself.
should always be questioning yourself, but at the same time, you want people who fundamentally agree with you, and the decisions that they make are going to be based on the information that they get,
Absolutely.
not on their fundamental basic belief. So if you
Yeah.
believe, you believe our Constitution was formed by people who said, our rights aren't given to us by a king. Our rights aren't given to us by a government. Our rights are given to us by God. The government's job isn't to give us rights. The government's job is to protect those rights. If you have people that understand that, then get those people elected into office.
Absolutely.
And look, you got to trust that they're going to work hard. If they're hard workers, they're going to go to work. They're going to read their bills. They're going to read their budgets. They're going to, they're going to provide good advice, just like any person who's on a board of directors is going to do, or if it's an executive position, and like any CEO is going to do. Trust that they're making good decisions. And of course, it's your job as a constituent to call them up and let them know what you think a good decision is, and what you think the information is, provide them information. Sometimes we don't get all the good information because sometimes there's a bureaucracy that provides us with a lot of information. And if I'm not getting information from someone else, I got to make the best decision with the information that I have in front of me. But find those people, get them to run for office who have those fundamental rights that line up with our founding fathers. Our job in the government is to protect those rights, not to give those rights or take them away.
Yeah, well, I'm very proud to call you my senator. So, and just knowing you as a person,
Thank you.
right? I know that you're going to do your best. Nobody's going to be perfect, and I don't know of anything you've done wrong, but but nobody's going to be perfect. But
Nobody gonna be perfect.
what is it Reagan said? Is it 80% or 90%? If you
80%.
80%, right?
80%.
If you agree with somebody 80% of the time, they're a friend, right?
That's the thing that going back to what both of you guys say. If I piggyback, we can take 1% or up to 5% of what we don't like about someone, and then we start building, this defense mechanism against them. And I'm like, me and my wife only agree with 75% of stuff most of the time. Honestly, I never understand why she want me to put all my shoes in a certain room, and I never understand like why she want me to do X, Y, Z. I'm like, that makes sense to me, but it makes sense to her. But then there's other things that make sense for me that don't make. So it kind of goes back and forth, and you pick and choose. So it does not change the fact that ideologically, like, I may not agree with my brother, but he's still my brother. You see what I'm saying? And so I love him as my brother, even though I don't agree with a lot of things that he do. He may not agree with a lot of things I do. And I think sometimes as a party, we will excoriate people and we will castigate people based off of that 1% or that 5%. But I feel like if we stay united and we keep coming together and if we keep the vision and the mission forward, we get a lot of stuff accomplished. And I think that's what we don't see a lot of today that we seen 8 years ago, we seen 15 years ago, that the Republican Party and those that had a conservative view about life here in America, we was able to find that 80% that President Reagan talked about, and we was able to unite and come together and really move things forward. So let me speed you up to why was you passionate about law? I mean, you went to law school. What type? Talk to me about the type of law that you study, you practice, and why was you passionate about it?
So I think law was kind of the outflow of my interest in politics. I went to one of those churches growing up, a couple different churches growing up, where the pastor wasn't afraid to say, "Hey, this is what happened in the news today, and this is how it relates to Scripture."
Yeah.
Civic-minded pastor.
Right. Somebody who wasn't afraid to, and they weren't speaking politics the whole time, but hey, let's bring it home. Let's talk about the relevancy of, this is a fallen world, and there's things that are out there that are that are not going to be pleasing to God, and how do we do that as the church, as individuals who are living out what God wants us to live out. So I think that formed the framework for me to start seeing the things of the world. So when I became of age, teenager, back in the day before all these social media platforms we're talking about, and there was the opinion section of the newspaper and the news press, and then there were there were the columns, there were the guest columnists, there were the opinions, and one of the hot button issues that was brand new back when I started reading the paper when I was like 15, 16 years old, was the Lee County School District wanted to have a secular Bible history course taught in public schools as an elective. I was like, this is great because I'd come from a Christian school. I learned a lot about scripture. And so when I was learning about U.S. history and I was learning about our founders, I was like, man, these guys, they all learned. I mean, half of them went to seminary before they even before they even signed the Declaration of Independence. So I was like, if these people have a very good fundamental background of at least Jewish history and the history of what was recorded in the Bible, maybe, man, this would be good for people who are studying history before they graduate and whether they go to college or go on to work. And I was dumbfounded as a teenager at how much pushback there was for people to learn not about Jesus Christ as the Messiah, but about the Israelites were enslaved in Egypt. The Israelites moved from Egypt to the land of Canaan. They set up a kingdom. You know, there were judges that were like, instead of learning about the like literally history, but just because it had the B word on it, Bible, all of a sudden the ACLU came in and they sued. So I started to see that politics were intertwined with law, and there was lawfare taking place 30 years ago. So I became very in tune to what the ACLU was doing, how they didn't care about civil liberties. For most Americans, they pretended to care about civil liberties for very few Americans, which where fast forward 30 years, where were they during COVID?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where was the American Civil Liberties Union during COVID when people were being forced to get vaccinated, to go travel, to go out to eat, to go to school, to engage in what you might call protected constitutional activities?
I don't remember, but I want to think that they were probably in favor of being
Go
forced.
to their website. Go to their website because I checked it out recently. They did some interesting mental gymnastics, but they said, well, to protect everybody's civil liberties, we want everyone to be safe, so you should be forced to get jabbed.
Yeah, I
And
figured they did. I
it's-
didn't know, but
But anyway, so I was onto them 30 some years ago when I was in high school. I was like, someone's got to go and like fight this. So that was kind of my direction. I want to get involved in politics. I care deeply about my faith. And so I wanted to like learn more about that. And Stetson at the time was not a Christian school, it was a secular school. So I wanted to learn what the other side thought about politics and religion. And so that's why I chose to go there. And then by the time law school opportunities rolled around, I remembered back in my days when I was at a Christian school, Christian schools taught both sides. They taught evolution and creationism. Right? Yeah, absolutely. Like why go to a law school? It's just going to teach you one side. It's like, let me go to a Christian school, ironically, so I'll learn both sides.
it is interesting. Yeah, Christian organizations do teach you both sides. Our Bible study did that.
Yeah.
Taught us all the different religions.
And that's why my kids are in a Christian school now. And until the school district has the freedom to teach both sides of an issue, I'd feel like I was tying one hand behind my kid's back and saying, go out in life right now and just try to use one hand.
Yeah, exactly.
I want them equipped with all the tools they can to be successful.
Absolutely. I mean, faith-based, let me tell you, if I didn't live by faith and understanding, how my grandmother embedded that in me, biblical principles is I claim all my success, based off the faith that I had, based off how I was raised up with biblical truths and biblical principles. Not to negate education, but I got my degrees, but let me tell you how much I use my faith today as a man that gets me through life. And so you're absolutely right. When you go in the public school sector, you always have a concern about, what are these kids being taught, number one. And when you really try to insert biblical truths, with young men and women, we're far off the spectrum right now with kids understanding how powerful biblical truths and principles are when it relates to living your life. It's a life journey. And if you're not living your life through faith based off your beliefs, which are biblical truths, it's gonna be a very strong journey for you to journey if you don't have biblical truth. So, but a lot of people, we're Christian conservatives, but a lot of people don't understand it from that perspective. We in this world, but we're not of this world. And I'm not as biblically profound. I didn't go to Bible school, but my grandmother raised me up. But I do understand that we have a call on our life, in this journey. And as we have this call in our life, God wants us to be impactful. So I certainly salute you, behind, your biblical truths when it relates to the principles that has been embedded in you, and now you're raising your kids up the same way. Let's speed you up a little bit to Senator.
Can we go back?
No, go ahead.
I want to give us
Go ahead.
hope here because I made a Facebook post, Missi Lastra. I've been to 3 graduation parties. Well, you may both know that my oldest grandchild came to live with us when she was 13. She just graduated high school and was going to FGCU nursing. The summer she's starting, but went to 3 different graduation parties, and all 3 of them. And this is a charter school, Oasis High School, very small school, very small graduating class, 200. Um, I went to 3 different parties, and they all had their Bible there with sticky notes to make a note by your favorite scripture and stick it into the Bible.
Wow.
And this is a group that, they had a separate prom party that had no alcohol versus
Wow.
the main prom party that had alcohol, the after party type thing.
And prom, we're talking about 17, 18-year-olds, right?
Yes.
With alcohol. Good.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. They have Bible study. They do it after school. I don't think it's a school program, but they do it after school. So I was just really like kind of humbled and said, and my granddaughter's one of them. So I was really humbled. I wasn't raised that way. My family was not religious at all. I went to church with friends a few times here and there. Didn't actually start my path until my late 20s. But so very different paths here, which is interesting between the 3 of us. But I think we have there are conservatives. The majority of the kids at the school are conservatives. They are they love Trump, and they have good debate. And I can remember my granddaughter, one of the things, she walked into class and she was mad she had to leave her first day of school. I think it was last year. She had to leave. They had to leave their backpacks at the front of the room. Some new rule, right? She couldn't take it with her, and she was mad. She questioned it, and the teacher said, "Well, you can thank your Governor Ron DeSantis for that." And she says, "No. My governor didn't make that rule." And she texted me, Mama, can you send me the bill? She challenged him.
Wow.
Just sees toes.
I love it.
And she had problems with that teacher for a little bit, and then they came to terms, and now he's like one of her biggest supporters.
Yeah.
So
Good for her.
yeah.
Good for her. Well, one of my teachers in high school, my English teacher, and I loved math growing up. I wanted to be an engineer. That's kind of what I wanted to do. And everything made sense. There was always a right answer. There was always a wrong answer with math. And then
I love math that way.
and then I moved in, 10th grade, my English class, and my teacher was, marking off, my word choices or the sentences that I was something. And so I would just debate with her.
It's subjective.
And I was like, well, this is right. And what you're saying is right, but also this is right. What I wrote is not wrong.
Funny.
And she basically just told me I should be a lawyer. So I think that was like happening right at that same time where I was reading the paper and all that stuff. So
That's funny.
like, yeah, you got to teach your kids to have backbone, to question.
Absolutely.
But like an age appropriate question, not like our 6-year-olds need to be taught, how to have sex, and they don't need to be taught about all the genders.
No.
They need to be taught like basic things, and then once they start to phase into that, they need to. Then as they're teenagers, they're gonna question on their own. Trust, like it's gonna happen.
You either address it or don't find out one way or
whether a
another.
teacher or curriculum says we should force the kids to question. But they have to have basic fundamental understanding of how the world works,
Absolutely.
so that their questions are appropriate, and so their questions can actually advance their learning and their knowledge.
Absolutely. Talk to me. So what inspired you to run for chair for the REC?
Well, like I said, I'd gotten involved 7 years earlier, which, that's a lifetime.
Yeah.
That's a lifetime. And
You were young when you got involved because you're still young.
yeah, well, but even think of like the makeup of the REC. Like think like what percentage of current REC members in Lee County, or Collier, I know your listener base is, all through Southwest Florida. How many people actually sat in the chair in the REC for 5 years before getting involved? They absorbed it. They learned. They saw how things moved. They got plugged in. Like you get plugged in different committees. But some people are ready to go because they were involved before they moved to Lee County, and that's kind of the uniqueness of Lee County is throughout the rest of the country. I don't think any state can really compare to Florida because we have a massive amount of people who have resources and time. they're retirees.
Yeah.
They moved down here, and now they want to protect the legacy for their kids, their grandkids, future generations, right?
Right.
And now they have time, and it becomes their whole world. Most other states, and I mean, I've had the pleasure of meeting a lot of people at various Republican national conventions. Traveling around now as a state senator, visiting other legislators from other states. Not everybody is able to like tap into a massive pool of grassroots workers, people who are informed, people who are able to pay their own way. They can get in their car, they can drive to events, and then they're educated. I mean, a lot of them they worked in business. They had very complicated, important occupations and careers, and now they have all those skills and they're putting them together. The problem that I see, or the challenge that we have in Lee County, Southwest Florida, there's so much talent. There's so many people with the ability to lead, and all of them want to lead.
Yeah.
And they have that urgency. Like nobody wants to wait.
Everybody wants to be a chief.
Nobody wants to wait 5 years to learn how they can help in this organization because, I mean, who knows what's gonna happen for a lot of people in 5 years? They retired, their lives are changing. So I think that's the biggest reward, and the biggest benefit, but also the biggest challenge that we have here in Florida, but especially Southwest Florida. The talent's unbelievable.
Yeah.
The resources are unbelievable. It's trying to get everybody to work together and stay focused on what's the next thing that we all need to use this momentum for.
No, absolutely. I talked about this on the show. We're so red that sometimes, you can find the pros and the cons, behind being so red, and you're right. It's, I've never been in an area where there was so many Republican clubs. And like you say, when you go to these club meetings, you're like, man, these people are sharp. It's like, man, anybody in this room could be, a rep or senate or a commissioner because they're so educated. And I've been places like the Birmingham, Alabama, where you like, man, like it's nobody in this room.
Well, let's rewind to the 2016 congressional election here, the primary. We had Kurt Clausen, who had come in. He served 2 terms, and I think he left because his father's health was deteriorating. So there was an open congressional seat here, and this was the seat before Byron Donalds ran, or the election before. To replace the person who served in CD19 before Byron. 3 people were in that Republican primary that were like front runners. I don't know if there was like 4 or 5, but there were 3 serious, like funded candidates. One, Francis Rooney, a billionaire who ended up winning. 2 was Chauncey Goss, who at the time was on the front line of government checks. I mean, if you want to talk about Doge before Doge, I mean, Paul Ryan.
We thought he would have done better.
Paul Ryan was the guy that Mitt Romney brought in and said, "Hey, gut the government. Let's do this." Mitt Romney never won president. But Paul Ryan was actually very close with Chauncey Goss, and Chauncey Goss has actually spent his entire career going after the budgets in DC and trying to make them efficient and doing that.
Highly qualified for the position. He was.
And his dad was a congressman.
Yeah.
And he was a city councilman on Sanibel. And his dad was the director of the CIA at one point. Like, super, super qualified. And then the third person who ran, who I think got the least amount of votes of those 3, is Dan Bongino.
Yep. Least amount of votes.
Guys, those 3 individuals could have been the governor of almost any state in the country.
Yeah.
And they were fighting for a congressional seat in Southwest Florida. That's just, it shows you that's, I think, the best metaphor that I can come up with to show you the talent.
Dan Bongino, please unblock me from Twitter.
Yeah. I mean, but hey, that's a great thing. Now, I mean, of course, looking at the landscape today, you just like, okay, I won't call names, but I'm starting to see people that are announcing who are filing. And I've had an opportunity to hear some of them speak. And I don't know, it's getting kind of scary, I mean, because now I think that some people do it because of fame. Some people do it because of power. I understand some people do it because they want that celebrityism, and you're doing it for the wrong reasons. I mean, if you're doing it for the right reason, when you get the platform to speak, you should be able to pull me. I always tell people, if I got to ask you for an endorsement, then that means that person didn't want more of you. But when you leave the room, you have a unique opportunity to help that person understand the fire that burns down the side of you, which will fuel passion for what you're going to do for that district or what you're going to do for that state.
Yeah.
That leads that person want more of you. They're going to endorse you. You ain't got to ask for the endorsement. If you got to ask for an endorsement, then you didn't leave that person with your passion.
Speaking about that race, how many people are in it right now today? Do you know? I don't know.
17.
That's just a lot.
I bet.
So
I
there-
think
but it was what, 11 or 13 in 2020? I think there was 11 in
Oh, there
20
were in 2020. Yeah,
There-
there were like the four.
the 4 top guys.
Yeah, the 4 top guys, which was Byron Donalds, Danny Eagle, Casey Asgar, and was it
Figgles,
Dr. Figgleseller?
something like that. Yeah, but there was 11.
But there was also the mayor of Fort Myers, Randy Henderson. Heather Fitzenhagen was in it until she dropped out to run for the Senate
Well, the
seat.
last minute switcheroo.
And then who else? There were quite a few people that were running in that race.
So how many? Let's bet now. How many do you think is going to run? How many do you think will be on the list?
I think it's 5 at this point.
How many do you think it'll be total by
So how many are going to qualify?
in June of
So
26?
yeah, it all depends on whether President Trump endorses before qualifying or after qualifying. If he endorses before, there's going to be very few people. Very few people will just choose not to qualify. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know why, and I have no inside intel. But I don't think he's endorsing in that before
qualifying.
Yeah, but you never know. You
Mhm.
never know. Somebody could jump in. That's you just never know.
Yeah.
But having said that,
That's scary. But that's a scary like for somebody who wants to run for that seat. That's a scary proposition because you got to spend a lot of money just to get ready to qualify. It's not super expensive to qualify.
It's about a $5 million race, $4.5 million.
But you got to be geared up and ready to go because qualifying is it's either in May or June of next year, and then the primary is going to be in August, which means the absentee ballots are getting sent out in July. So you have about a 6-week window between qualifying and actually like the first person casting their vote for or against you. So you can't just wait until qualifying to go. And then President Trump has, in a lot of cases, in a lot of races, even just this past year, he's waited until half the absentee ballots have been sent back in before he endorses in races. It's really interesting because you and I know, because I know you run campaigns, and you can spend a lot of money, and then an endorsement from either the president or the governor comes out and just erases all the money that you spent.
Yeah.
So people are just not going to want to get in the race if they don't have the endorsement ahead of time. So it'll be interesting to see.
I think you'll have a lot of people in this race that are just breaking in, getting their name out there,
Never see their name out.
running around,
Get your name out.
meeting people. Well, you got to have probably your own money, probably some of your own money, because you're not going to raise a lot of money. Especially, I don't know what's going on. There's a lot of people coming down here from Illinois and running for office.
Well, we don't want
Really, midway.
They're coming here from everywhere.
Yeah.
Especially New York and Illinois because our state's been better.
And I have nothing against Illinois. I feel sorry for you folks up there and the whole Chicago situation. And I understand why you're here, but
I can't control where you were born.
that's for sure.
Yeah, I was born.
That's
Yeah, I'm a Southern California guy, man. Like I
You
won't
can't control where
say it too loud. Yeah.
You can control where you stay, where you choose to stay, but
Mhm.
other than that,
A lot of people moving here. A lot of
well,
people.
for great reasons because we've been doing it right here, and I think that's something that voters are going to consider. I've heard pieces like, "Hey, I'm from Illinois, or I'm from New York, or I'm from California. I want to ensure that Florida stays the way." Well, maybe someone from Florida should ensure that it stays the way Florida.
Well,
always
so
has.
I was going to ask you about that. So what do you think about that? So we're having all these, what if situations, but you go back to 2016 and we talk about, great guy. Dan Bongino's done a great thing with media. Now he's with the FBI and helping Cash Patel out and all that. And that's great. He's back to his roots of law enforcement, but he wasn't from here. And
Right.
that's why he came in 3rd out of 3, right? He
Yeah,
wasn't
and
from here.
it doesn't mean he wouldn't have done a jam up job in DC. He knew how the swamp worked.
Right. Do you think people still see?
All-
We seem to see through that here. We want somebody from here that will represent us. Do you think we're still that way? Do you
I-
think we're still going to lean that way?
It's going to play a part in the decision. However, the people who think that that's important generally tend to be from here. But there's also a lot of people that vote who aren't from here.
Probably like me.
So
Like-
so it's a really interesting. Like
Dewayne?
if you go to North Florida, go to the Panhandle. It's going to be really interesting if somebody from New York or Illinois showed up in the Panhandle and started running.
Yeah.
But there's 1 or 2 congressional districts up there. There's not a whole lot of population. You come down here, a lot of people are from somewhere else.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So So I don't think that's as important. But even a big city like Miami, they still like there's still a type of candidate who's successful over there. They're from Miami, they grew up in Miami, they understand the values. And I think that there's some assimilation that's necessary in order to speak the language and be successful.
Yeah.
But I don't think that I don't think being from Lee County or Collier County, like having that on your birth certificate or going to high school here,
And I
I don't
agree
think
with
that that's a requirement. But if you can assimilate, if you've been assimilated, the voters will know.
So I'm going to rephrase that a little bit because most people here aren't from here.
Right.
But if the first time I meet you, you're running for office,
Yeah.
and I've never seen you before, I've never heard of you before.
Yeah. Well, and I think that would be my take. Is how well have you immersed yourself to get involved in the community? I made a pretty significant splash here over the last year because I came in, got involved with the REC.
You're everywhere.
Yeah, I'm everywhere.
You
You're
are
right.
everywhere.
I'm everywhere.
I'm like,
Yeah.
Dwayne is where?
Yeah.
Where's Dwayne?
Yeah,
How
I'm
did he get
everywhere.
there?
Let me tell you. Yeah.
I didn't tell him about that. Somebody else told him about that.
But I understood, when I did the whole White House opportunities, we was in 171 cities that were socially economically suppressed. So we built those cities into opportunity zones. So I understood the dynamics of what it really took to get out and immerse yourself with citizenship for them to understand that, hey, listen, he will have a voice that would echo for me because he'll go in rooms that I won't go in. So when I came here and I was boots on the ground. I wanted to know, like, where's the Lehighs? Where's the Dunbar? I wanted to know that. I wanted to know where the North Fort Myers at. And so I came and I got involved. I reached out to Michael Thompson at the National Republican Party, and I think it was Milwaukee, right? That was the year I came, so last year. And, someone introduced me to him, like, hey, you moving to Southwest Florida? You need to talk to him. And he was like, hey, I'm on my way out. When you get to Florida, I'm going to connect you with some people. I was like, hey, I just want to volunteer. I didn't look at this is who I am. This is, no, I'm like, hey, I just want to come in from a grassroots standpoint of view, get involved, get to know people, meet people, find out where can I serve because, hey, I'm new on, I'm the new guy. I'm the new kid on the block. So whatever it takes. And like you say, sometimes, when people come in now, I feel if I wanted to run for something next year, more people will know Dwayne the guy because he's going to be boots on the ground. He's going to make sure he's doing
So
the
what
right.
you running for, Dwayne?
Nah, man. Let me tell you, like hey, look, I was telling somebody, I don't know.
Campaign.
I was telling somebody this morning. I don't know
It's
who I
after
was telling.
26.
Yeah. I'm like, listen. There's 20. Let me see. What is it? 1,440 minutes in a day, and I think I got one left. So I mean, like I told the story the other day, and I hope if my daughter hears this, she don't stone me. My daughter's flying down this week, and she's flying down this week, and I'm flying out of town this week. I had my second grandbaby born on April the 2nd. I was there, haven't seen her since, and my wife has seen her 5 times. So I'm like, she's bringing the baby to me, and I'm going to speak to her. So it's like, man, are you serious? Like, I'm coming to Southwest Florida so you can see your granddaughter, and you leaving Southwest Florida to go speak.
So I think you just made my point. Like, get involved in the community, get involved with the people, and you got involved in politics right away. You got involved in the schools right away, in the at-risk youth right away. But back to you, we got like a short period of time left, so I want to make sure that we talk about Senate this past session.
All right.
Did you have to wear body armor?
I always wear body armor. You know me.
I've not seen as a citizen out here, out of the Tallahassee sphere, I've not seen such a, well, at least not that I know of, such a interesting session. What's your take on it?
Well, it started off with a special session.
That's right. I forgot.
So there were 3 special sessions. I was one of the 4 legislators of the 160 that I guess sided with the governor in special session. So that kind of put me in like an interesting little spot to begin with. And that didn't come from like, I love the governor and I'm going to do whatever he says to do. It came from hey, I read the bills. Like we got to have teeth in anything that's going to involve immigration enforcement because there's going to be a whole lot of localities that are just going to refuse to deal with it. And I dealt with that with the homeless bill that I'd run the year before that dealt with fixing a lot of the homeless issues around the state of Florida. And if you don't put teeth in it, there's a lot of woke cities, a lot of woke elected officials and bureaucrats that are just going to find a way to not deal with it. And we kind of saw that play out here in the city of Fort Myers. But thank God the governor's version passed and not the legislator's version, because the governor's version had teeth. And so that's what I'd actually filed 2 bills that they were killed in the first session, the first special session that lasted for 5 minutes. And then we gavelled into a new special session. That's where the legislator had their version. The governor vetoed that. And then we came back out in the third session, which basically put the bills that we had filed under special session A that the governor had wanted, put those on the table. And that's what we ended up with. So it started off really unique with the governor and the Senate and the House at odds. As the session progressed, somehow the Senate and the governor ended up working together, and the House now working together. And so by the time session ended, and there were a bunch of different reasons, a lot of it has to do with the budget, the tax package, and some priorities that the Senate president had, priorities that the governor had that the House wasn't seeing eye to eye with. So, and I think it's fair to have debates, discussions. It's why we don't have one branch of government. It's why we don't have one chamber, even in the legislature. We want checks and balances. We want there to be debate. Going back to what we talked about earlier, like the government's job is to protect those God-given rights. If it's not doing that, then we should fight about it.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't get done, right? So just because we're all Republicans, supermajority Republicans, governor's Republican, doesn't mean that we're all omnipotent and are going to make the right decision. We don't know everything. We don't have monopoly on everything. So sometimes you gotta disagree. Sometimes you gotta fight it out. But eventually, I think we're gonna get to a budget that's gonna be passed, and
Like next week?
by June 30th. By June 30th.
Oh, no, we want it faster. We don't want
I don't want to spend government money faster.
My Christian Family Coalition event, I moved it to
Oh,
June
yeah,
28th
I know.
so that you guys could come.
Oh, I think we'll be done by then, by June 38th.
28th.
38th. June 28th. Let me have some more coffee. It's a bit. I'm still in session. Day like 90 in session.
Decide if we're still going to be in session or not, if I keep it there or not. So I moved it from May 30th to June 28th. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
You're a sponsor of that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for what you do.
Oh, thank you.
They're great. They're a great partner. And some of the bills that I carry up there. I was flattered to get as much attention for the property tax bill that I filed. It was the only bill that dealt with studying the elimination of property taxes, and we saw that just take off. You know what? It just started a discussion, and this is going back to like politics, and don't always just try to like run for the highest office, right? Like go where you can work, go where you can,
That's right.
go where you need it.
Work and learn.
And you know what? Florida's a really cool place to be right now to test really conservative ideas, to have these conversations. The eyes of not just America, but the world are on Tallahassee. Like looking our response to COVID, and we said, wait a second, let's not just
Epic.
Yeah. Again, what's the government's job? To protect God-given rights.
That's right. That's
To
right.
protect those rights, not to tell us what to do, and not to like, set up some master economy or some master, engineered society, but to protect rights and let individuals choose how they want to live their lives. So we're in a really unique spot. So when I filed that bill, all of a sudden, everyone in the country is talking about that. And it's really cool to sit back and say, this is great, but also don't stop there. This is an opportunity to start the conversation or change the conversation on a lot of other really cool things that we can do and we can lead here in Florida.
What outside of Florida? How about federal? What do you think of the big beautiful bill?
This is.
I know you've read it. I know he's probably read it.
Yeah, the whole thing, right?
You could never read the whole thing, but maybe I don't know. Maybe
You
you
have to
could.
pass before you can read it.
Yeah.
So it's true for Republicans and for Democrats, unfortunately.
Yeah.
What I've come to understand, even before I got into office, even in the REC, just because you're in office doesn't mean that you can get 100% of what you want done.
Right.
That's right.
It doesn't. So the question becomes: are you moving the ball forward or are you moving the ball backward?
Yeah.
Are you missing a good shot? I mean, if you got a great open 3-point shot, and you got Steph Curry sitting there at the 3-point line,
Yeah.
why are you going for a layup?
Yeah, exactly.
Why are you trying to get fouled and go to the line?
That's right.
I mean, if you got the 3, and so I feel like right now we have Steph Curry at the 3-point line.
Yeah.
So why are we going for the
I
layup?
love
Yeah.
Why are we going for the layup? So
Analogy.
that's how I see the big beautiful bill. We could have gotten more.
Yeah.
But I'll take the 2 points. I mean,
That's right.
if we win the game, if if we can advance, to the next round of the playoffs,
Exactly.
then fine, I'll take
Way
the
to
2
put it.
points. But man, we had a chance to really make a statement. So that's how I see it.
Good point.
Yeah. If you had to evaluate this year for yourself as a senator here, will you give yourself a plus? It sounds like you've been very accomplished this year with the bill and your vision, for your district. So how do you feel going forward? Like, because of course, we get to the end of the session. Like, what's really next? I guess that would be more my question. What's really next for you and your vision?
Man, I'll let the voters decide, if I get a plus or not. But I'll tell you this: don't go to Tallahassee and say, "Hey, I want to pass a bunch of bills."
Yeah.
Like that shouldn't be your goal. I file a bunch of bills, and
Yeah.
I get a lot of bills passed. But if your goal is to pass bills, you're not going to fight the good fight. You're going to say, "Ah, that's too controversial. I'm not going to file. It's going to waste my time." I'm happy. In when I was a brand new prosecutor, um, I remember learning that, hey, you shouldn't win every trial, because if you win every trial, first of all, in misdemeanor, there are a lot of cases where the jury's going to be like, no, not guilty. Even though the person's guilty, the damage wasn't that bad, the jury's going to say not guilty. But if you're only taking winners to trial, there's a whole lot of other things out here that aren't getting tried.
Yeah.
Same thing in the legislature. If you're only passing bills, or you're only filing bills that are going to get passed, there's a lot of conversations that you're not having. That property tax bill, that didn't move at all. I was the only one that filed it. There wasn't even a companion in the House, but it started a conversation. And Florida's going to be changed dramatically in the next few decades, possibly because of that bill just getting filed. So the question isn't how many bills did I pass, or do I give myself an A or plus? Did I work as hard as I possibly could have worked? Did I leave everything on the field? And if that's the question, then absolutely.
That's good stuff, and I'm quite sure your constituents and the people that voted for you, that's what they want to hear. What's hot in your district?
Well, the weather right now.
The weather,
I mean,
yeah.
well, district 33.
My first time,
Well, let's-
I got out of the car and my glasses clogged up.
Oh, that happened to me this morning.
Yeah, that was the first time.
The humidity's here, which means
Here.
the afternoon thunderstorms couldn't come fast enough.
Quantity is
Yeah,
here.
no.
Do y'all watch
Yeah.
that? Oh my God, OMG, it's Wicks. Do y'all watch him?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's crazy. We got about
Super humidity.
5 minutes. We got about 5 minutes. So this last thing I want to ask you, then we'll bounce back to Missy. My question at from where you at now, um, what do you see as far as in your district that may be a concern for the people, your constituents?
I mean, we could talk about there's a ton of concerns.
Okay.
But we have a good, well-rounded group of people in Tallahassee that are working hard on these issues. And in our school district, the county commission, our cities, I think everyone's the people that we know are good Republicans. They're doing a good job. They're working hard. They care. But we gotta worry about, okay, so growth. We know that Lee County is growing. I mean, that's why we're here.
Yeah.
Every business is growing. And with that, there comes economic pressure. There comes social pressure, and I think we got to marry that. And you look at what's happening down in Naples, the controversy with the drag show
That's just.
that's going to go down there, right? I could talk about that for a completely
I
different
know you
show.
could.
Yeah.
We'll have another show. We'll have you back.
Oh yeah.
We might get more targeted
But
next time.
with more people finding out about this, this hidden gem, and we've been a hidden gem for a long time.
Yeah.
With more people finding out about it,
Oh,
more people are going to.
We're not hidden anymore.
So are we going to build more roads? Are we going to make sure our zoning is smart? Is that economic side going to be handled appropriately? But also social side. What are we going to do to make sure that our kids, make sure that our families, make sure that people who want this, I mean, the last little bit of freedom. The reason that Florida was free during COVID was because of Governor DeSantis. The reason we had Governor DeSantis was because of Southwest Florida in the 2018 primary.
Yeah.
That was it. So what are we going to do to protect not just Southwest Florida, but Florida, America, the world? I mean, we are it. We're very, very, very important. And you've heard me talk about these stats for years in the RDC about.
He probably hasn't heard you.
Yeah.
I mean, for years, you look at the size of a county, and the percentage that that county will vote for a Republican versus a Democrat in presidential elections, for example, because there's good stats to compare across the country. Lee County for a decade and a half has been of the 100 largest counties in the country, very few are Republican. Obviously, these are like the New York City, the Maricopa County, LA, the massive liberal counties. Lee County is populated enough where we've been in that top 100 for a decade and a half. We had the widest margin of victory of Trump over Clinton and Trump over Biden. Of all those 100 counties,
Yeah.
Lee County was number one. Then when you look at 3,500, 3,600 counties in the country, Lee County in 2016 had the third most net votes
Wow.
of Trump over Clinton, and 2020 of Trump over Biden, number 4.
Wow.
That's a phenomenal stat, and that it shows you how important we are.
And those
here.
are our stats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lee
We work
County, not
butts off.
Collier, not Charlotte, because they're smaller counties.
Yeah.
So they have a higher percentage. I mean, you can go to like the Panhandle and like Liberty County. There's 90% voted for Trump, right? But that's like 10,000 people.
Yeah.
Come to a community of size. I mean, we have a media market here. We have and you want to lump in Collier and Charlotte as well with the media market. This is the most conservative media market in the country.
Yeah.
So we gotta protect that at all costs. We gotta protect our messaging. What makes us special? Don't fall for cheap tricks. Somebody's gonna offer you money for the CBDGR money coming from HUD.
Yeah.
Don't fall for don't sell our values. Don't sell our community for
How do you stop that? Because I understand that staff, reads it and does the research and makes the recommendation. Do the people that are making those decisions, should they be reading this stuff too?
we have to have, and this is where the bill that I filed last session with Mike G, with Representative G Lombardo, dealt with that.
He's behind you, by
with
the way.
with the county
I
manager.
mean, not literally, but
Having a county manager that's accountable to
Yeah.
the commissioners and to the people.
Yeah.
I think our county manager is fine, but he's not in tune. He answers to a different constituency than if he was elected by the people.
yeah, he's
The
elected by
people,
the committee.
and that's what we did with the school district. We had a superintendent that just wasn't listening to us. So Representative Roach a few years ago said, "Hey, let's let the voters decide on whether they want their superintendent accountable to them."
So far, she's doing great.
Right. And if she's not, then you remove her.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't have to go through this like hierarchy of, well, she's making 4 of the 7 board members happy, so therefore she's not going to be removed. Like now she's accountable to the people, so she's going to spend more time talking to the people.
That's right. That's right.
And we've seen her more in the community than we saw our past superintendents in the community,
Yeah.
because she has to be.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's not because they were bad; they had a different constituency.
Yeah.
Their constituency was bureaucracy.
No, I don't blame the
So
previous ones.
so I think whenever there's a problem and there's no, like, the normal checks and balances aren't fixing that problem, we have to look at fixing the checks and balances. And I think that's our job as legislators, to make sure that we have those checks and balances in place here in Lee County to make sure that works. It's unfortunate though, sometimes our fellow conservative will disagree, and you're like, but did you see the language? And they're like, what's that grant? What do you mean? I didn't see the contract. People don't know about these things because it's not part of their life. They're working on school board issues, but in the legislature, I see a whole lot of different issues, and I have the opportunity to see where there's problems. I get to learn from other legislators
Yeah.
who are having problems in another part of the state. So before it comes over here to Lee County, we can kind of fix these issues. And so I think you just gotta put good people in office who understand the fundamentals and that work hard, and then have a little bit of trust when you hear their ideas about what's happening in other parts of the state and how we can fix it.
Yeah.
So that we can protect what's special about Southwest Florida.
No, absolutely. And your voice and many others like yourself is why me and Missy had a vision for doing what we do, because how many people, in your district, or how many, people around Southwest Florida get the opportunity to talk to you, but they get the opportunity to hear from you and to understand what your vision is based off of, understanding what the vision of the people was based off the platform they voted for. Because a lot of times I think sometimes we can be so political that we lose a touch in the community, in the district. And so, it's very humbling and an honor to have you here with us today, because every time I get the opportunity to be in the studio with somebody, I learn more about Southwest Florida. I learn more about them. I learn more about the district. So, again, like, I salute what you're doing in Tallahassee for the people here in Southwest Florida. I'm going to let you wrap it up for us, Missy, because I know you may have another question for me.
Well, I interrupted you because I got all excited about the Rubio story, and Oh, it was my. I didn't even know.
That's why I opened with talking about Rubio. I was going to set you up. Yes.
You know, right? So, but anyway, isn't he doing great though?
It's awesome.
So, I mean, we thought he was, obviously 2020 and Trump won. We thought he was going to be Secretary of State then, but boy, you know what? God knew what he was doing. So, but having said that, I would cut you off. And you dated Amy, but then you married Amy, and she's your beautiful wife now.
Yeah.
And you have 3 beautiful children.
Yeah.
And 2 of them are in school.
3. Well, they're all in preschool.
Okay.
The oldest actually is graduating kindergarten next week.
Okay.
So if it calls for special session next week, I'm not going.
So he was a little baby. He was a little baby when I said, "Oh, let me hold him, Jonathan." He was going down to my knees.
He was tall, Cal. He was 23 inches at birth. He was yeah. And he's super tall now. I mean, he's in kindergarten and he's like, I don't know, like 5 feet tall.
Wow.
Not 5 feet tall. Is he 4 feet? He's close to 4 feet tall.
All the boys in your family tall?
My brother and I are the same height.
Wow. Wow, man, what could I have did with 6'8", 6'9", man?
I don't have any more questions for you, man. I think you're doing a great job, and I would like to get deeper into some issues with you. The top issue right now, which we don't have time to get into, but we're going to get into it in the next hour. But single member districts, I know you were a proponent of letting the voters decide on that.
Yeah. I actually had a funny story about that the other day. 2 days ago, I had a Facebook memory pop up from 10 years ago. Was it Stephanie Ellers? She had posted something about, she was involved with the REC back 10 years ago, and she had posted something about single member districts are being discussed at the county charter review forum that was taking place that night. And I was like, man, see, like we've been trying to get this thing on the ballot for like 10 years. Let people decide. Let us decide. And there's good arguments. I get that some people
there are good arguments on both
for
sides.
5 county commissioners, but you're also going to have 5 times as more people voting for those county commissioners as opposed to voting for 1 county commissioner, but there's 5 times fewer people voting for that 1 county commissioner. I like government closer to the people, and the smaller group of people that my representative represents, I feel like I have a much better ability to make my point heard to them. So if I have a concern, I feel like instead of, it being like 1/10 of 5 individuals' concerns, it might be 100% of what one person thinks about because it's such a smaller district. So I want people to feel bought in to this. We've had a lot of changes since the Democrats controlled Lee County and basically wrote the at-large members into the charter. We've moved from.
It was mostly Democrats that voted against this in the House. It was 11 voted against it, and 8 of them were Democrats.
Yeah, it's
Interesting.
It's
They don't want it.
So this was written by Democrats, and it was actually not the bill that came through, but our charter was written by Democrats. We've flipped. I mean, we're 100% Republican in this county now. There's no question. Even our districts. I was looking at some stats the other day regarding the in the presidential and the governor races, how each of the county commission districts did in those races. District 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 4 is Brian Hammond's seat. 5 is Mike Greenwell's seat. And everybody for years has been like, well, Lehigh's going to go Democrat real soon. And
It hasn't.
it's like, well, Armor Persons represents that district, and he's probably the most conservative person on the school board.
I would probably agree with that.
And that's even in a nonpartisan race. I mean, it's incredible.
He won pretty handily.
Yeah, very handily
And
against an incumbent Democrat
that
who
was very well liked by everybody.
Yeah,
By the way.
yeah.
Very visible in the community.
So I use that as an example to say, look, it doesn't mean that we're even going to have a Democrat, but I think that allowing individuals to have a say in who represents their district is more important than allowing people who live outside the district to decide who represents them. I learned about the way that Florida used to elect their state legislators. They used to be at large as well. Could you imagine if we elected our state legislators at large?
Wow.
Miami, Broward, and Palm Beach would control who's in the legislature.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that was a thing.
Because it was a way to keep these small back then it was a way to keep Republicans from getting elected because all the Democrats were supporting were able to control
Wow.
who was getting in. So that's the reason. These district lines are kind of like artificial if you have a large representation.
Yeah.
And think of our U.S. senator, both of our U.S. senators. They're kind of at large if you think about it. They both represent the same district. They're just elected at different times. That's an at large seat. So if the state's a Democrat at the time, that's why we had Bill Nelson as a U.S. senator for so long. But we're Republican now. So Marco Rubio, now Ashley Moody, is going to win the next election. Rick Scott, Senator Scott, they run statewide. That's an at-large district. But imagine if we had, right now, because we're a Republican state, imagine if we had at-large congressional seats.
Well, I would argue.
We'd have watered down Republicans. Byron Donalds wouldn't spend a whole lot of time here. He'd spend a lot of time in Miami. Yeah.
I would argue that the state Senate seat is a single member district because the rest of the country doesn't vote on it.
It is. Where all the legislators are.
I'm talking about the U.S. Senate.
Oh, the U.S. Senate.
Because only Florida votes on it, the rest of the country doesn't. I would still argue it's a single member district.
It
We
is.
vote. Not all the 50, not all 50 states.
It is. You're right.
You think?
In that respect, it is. Yeah. But as far as the state of Florida goes, like we have two people that serve in that, so there's like overlapping.
But it is a statewide race, which is a huge race.
Mhm.
Trust me, I'm in one now.
Huge. Yeah, we have a big state.
Well, Senator, man, we would love to have you come back in. The deep dive, at least when you come back in, we don't have to get to know more about you because we know a little bit more about you now. And so when we bring you back in, we can just go forward.
Lots of tough questions.
And then you got something going on you want to talk about? You let us know.
All right.
Yeah, anytime. Yeah, we're here. As I always say, we're out of time, but we're not out of message.